This is Texans TV. Texans Extra Points is sponsored by BHP and by Reliant, the official energy provider of the Houston Texans, and by your local Ford dealers. Ford is the best in Texas.
We are ready to rock at NRG Stadium. Whitney Merciless with the sack. Throws left side of the end zone. Caught. Hopkins. Touchdown, Houston.
I like talking football with guys who know and gals who know a lot about football, and these two know a hell of a lot. We got John Harris of the Houston Texans, and we got Clint Sterner of the Arkansas Razorbacks, former NFL quarterback, the pride of Baytown Lee, and we've got a whole heck of a lot to discuss, but just stick with me because we got to knock some news of the week out of the way, and we do so with this week's Quick Hits. And hey, how about that offensive output and defensive output for most of the game on Sunday night in the win over the Patriots? A lot of that is in big part to the return of Will Fuller at wide receiver. And Deshaun Watson, the guy throwing him the ball and throwing others the ball, loves having number 15 back in the lineup.
You have to respect everything that Will is capable of doing, especially speed, because that's one of his best traits. Like you said, not just in the pass game, but if you want to include the run game, it puts the DBs and the safeties back a little bit more. It really, opens up a lot of different things.
For the third time this season, Watson got the Offensive Player of the Week award from the NFL. He had 3 touchdowns through the air. He also caught one. And Bill O'Brien says, despite that offensive output, that excellent output, he's the same guy every day.
You can't say enough about his willingness to improve, his work ethic, his resiliency. I think the biggest key for Deshaun is that he's the same guy every day. He's a very consistent person, and he just tries to get better every day, and that's what he's got to do. Today, tomorrow, moving forward. Every single day is watch the game. Where can we improve, and then start getting ready for Denver.
But what about Sunday at noon? Here inside NRG Stadium, the Denver Broncos come to town, and they come to town with a rookie quarterback in Drew Lock. Usually, you just brush that off and say, easy pickings. Not necessarily so for this time.
Drew has a good arm, lively arm, has a lot of confidence in himself, so if he feels like he's getting a rhythm, he will have that confidence to keep him moving. So definitely want to keep that contained with the weapons that he has with Noah and Cortland. Guys like that.
All right, so that's some news from the week. We've got John Harris, Clint Sterner. Guys, I want you to answer a sentence for me, or finish a sentence for me. The win over the Patriots means, I'll start with you, Clint.
They've arrived. It's a monumental victory. I know you asked for one word, but I can't help myself, Johnny. I know you can relate. I'm telling you, it's just a monumental victory for Bill O'Brien, Deshaun Watson, the Texans, the 2019 season. You beat a 10-1 team, you've done something special. And
you beat a 10-1 team that you haven't beaten in 10 years, John, and you and I have made a lot of those trips together up to New England, and they always ended poorly.
Yeah, retribution in some sense. Now, there's two sides of me here. Number one, the former coach side of me says it's just a win.
Right.
You move on to the next week because you can't allow a win over the Patriots end up beating you against Denver Broncos because you're still hung up and all fat and happy from that win over the Patriots. For those of us that made the trips and have seen that team and suffered the losses to the Patriots, it was sort of cathartic. But to Clint's point, sometimes as a team, you have to understand that you've gotten to a certain level, that you are that team, that you're not playing with the lower levels of the NFL anymore. You can play with the big dogs, and you proved it.
Yeah, and we've seen that at times this season. The Texans maybe played down to the level of their competition. Did not happen, or I guess it did happen Sunday night, but they played up to that level of competition. All right, Watson was brilliant. Once again, Deshaun Watson under center is now 6-2 in prime time. If you equate it out to a full season, he'd have something like 39, 40 touchdowns and maybe 6 interceptions. He is rolling. Why is it different when it's in prime time? And it's not too different because he's great in the daylight as well. But what have you noticed from him in these games under the lights?
I mean, look, I think prime time is what he's made for. I mean, when the lights are the brightest and the stage is the biggest, this guy shows up and shows out. Now, part of playing the quarterback position at a high level has a lot to do with Bill O'Brien. So often we talk about Deshaun Watson and how he shows up or doesn't show up, vice versa. He's had a couple of rough games this week. And I think that when you really look at it, that when him and Bill O'Brien are on the same page and they're clicking and he's processing and the plan is on point, this team is as good as anybody in the league, right? And so it's about It's about how often can those two be on the same page and be as one going into a game, right? Can you do it 10 out of 16? We've seen that. Can you get to 12 out of 16? Can you get to 14 or 15 out of 18 or 19 maybe one day? That's what this thing's all about. It's a beautiful place for the quarterback and the play caller to be with the Houston Texans in 2019.
And it's been fun. He brings up an excellent point. Just seeing all these guys work in union together and seeing this receiving trio of Hopkins, of Stills, and of Will Fuller really stretch defenses and put a lot of stress on them.
Well, we'd like to compare this offense to a lot of different offenses throughout the league. It's sort of hard to do that because Larry Tunsil got here week 1. Kenny Stills got here week 1. This group is still learning what each other can do. Wait till they have years under their belt. But yet, when it comes to Deshaun Watson on prime time or in prime time, some guys just have that DNA. I mean, Clint, you know that. Some guys just have that DNA. They love it when the lights are shown on them and they know that everybody's watching that Sunday night game. For some reason, they just have that DNA to be able to perform in that way.
John, when you're talking about the receivers, man, the one thing that's been inconsistent is the health issue and Fuller being involved and Stills being involved. And so often we talk about Deshaun Watson and Bill O'Brien taking the next step and being consistent in the mid-range game or in the quick game or the timing and the anticipation. All of those aspects of playing the position and calling plays, that requires guys to be available and be healthy so you can get that chemistry. What we see is greatness just because they're so talented. They're so good when the stage is big and the lights are bright. Those are that's what these guys can do if you just roll the ball out there and ask them to play. Think about how good it's going to be when they stay healthy and they get more time together Monday through Saturday. The sky's the limit. And I think last week's just a little look into what's possible with this crew when they're healthy.
And think about what happens when they run the ball a little bit better than they have lately, because that's something that O'Brien talked about on Wednesday. He said, the Texans have got to run the ball better. We have got to improve in that area. How do they do that? What do they need to do?
Well, the thing is, and we talk about this with pass protection a lot and with sacks. Well, the sacks are all on the offensive line. Not being able to run the ball is not always about the offensive line. No, you're running against Lawrence Guy and Danny Shelton. Things are going to be tough. What this team has got to be able to do is run against different types of fronts. Bigger, stout, quicker, whatever it is. They got to be more consistent every end. And it's not just the offensive line.
Okay, sit tight. We got to talk about the defense and what they're doing well, what they need to improve upon, and we are going to go to break. But before we do, this guy's got a telestrator, and he's breaking it all down. What Bradley Roby did on his big Sunday night.
Welcome to Texas Telestrator, presented by BMW. I'm your host, John Harris, and we're going to take a look at one of the key plays in that 28-22 win over the Patriots. And it's really one that kind of shifted the momentum all to the Texans. And it's Bradley Roby's interception. There's Roby right there. He is going to do a tremendous job in coverage. But how did it all come together? Here we go. Patriots in empty formation. Now, one of the things the Patriots love to do and teams love to do is use motion to figure out coverage. So it looks like man-to-man just before Edelman moves. It looks like man-to-man, but this will confirm it. So as Edelman goes in motion, Brady knows, okay, J-Joe's going with as he goes in motion. I'm pretty sure that's man coverage. Also, Edelman wants to know because it's going to impact his route. If it's zone, as he comes over here, he may run a little different route to get open in his zone. But because it's man, he knows he's going to run over here, use these guys as a pick, and then start out and then whip back inside. The good thing about this, and we'll look at this side first, is J-Joe gets over the top. Now, with all this going on, this is just a beautiful pick route. But the Patriots know J-Joe's probably going to jump out here. So just whip Edelman back inside. It'd be wide open, right? Well, B-Mac does a good job right here of sealing that off. So when Edelman comes out here, and you can see when he whips back inside, he realizes B-Mac, J-Joe, Tom's already looking the other side because he saw that coming. So now when he goes over to the other side, he's like, all right, if B-Mac is turned this way, they're playing 4-on-3. He knows Reed's in the middle, so he knows these are true man-to-man routes right here. Somebody's got to win. And he actually sort of picks the wrong guy. But he knows he's got to get rid of the ball. Pressure's coming slowly but surely. And he's got to pick on this guy right here. He should have gone here. Now, I've talked about this for a while. How do you win at the top of your route? Well, this is what I'm talking about right here. Roby gets there, and N'Keal Harry is 6'4", 215. Roby is 5'10", maybe 5'11", 190. Who should win? That guy. But Roby is the more physical player here and fights underneath Harry and makes that interception. I mean, this is just a heck of a play. I wish I could get just up close to this because you can see how physical Robe is without interfering. And look at him drop that right shoulder to get underneath him and then make a play on the ball. Look at that. Ohio State still beating Michigan, baby. Bang. Interception. Bradley Roby changing the game. Now, he'll tell you he should have gotten the end zone, but either way, it was a heck of a play. The Texans playing great man-to-man coverage, excellent on the three-receiver side, and then up at the top of the screen, winning one-on-one. Bradley Roby making one heck of a play.
First and goal from the 6. Deshaun hands off to Johnson. Now to Hop right side. He flips the ball to Watson. Diving for the pylon. And he's got it. Razzle dazzle. Touchdown, Houston.
All right, this next gen stat powered by AWS is all about speed, and it's all about DeAndre Hopkins' speed. When he threw that pass to Deshaun Watson, and I say threw and pass, it's more like a pitch. Either way, it was awesome. He was running 12 plus miles per hour. So that's a pretty cool next gen stat, John Harris and Clint Sterner, and you learn something new every day, don't you?
A little speed, 12 miles an hour on that.
Yeah.
I mean, it was not a very far way to run, but I like the ball handling on that. And Clint, you know, a lot of different handoffs going on there. There were a lot of different spots where they could have botched that, and they didn't.
Look, the key to the option is you got to close the cushion between you and the pitch man. He closed the cushion, made a nice pitch, and got flipped in the process. I don't know if I like number 10 doing that, but it looked good for one play for sure.
You ever get flipped when you threw a pass?
No, I don't run fast enough or jump high enough to get flipped. I got undercut, but never flipped.
You could have gone 12, 13 miles per hour. I'm sure of it. All right, let's talk a little bit about the defense. Bradley Roby had not played since you beat Kansas City. That was another big win this season, but there was a big gap of time. Comes back against the New England Patriots, has a pick, has another pick that gets pulled off the board, has a huge sack, and really locked down guys at the running back position that usually give this team trouble, and receivers. Can you just underscore how important he was and will be throughout December?
Well, you said it, Drew. What guy in the field did he not cover on Sunday night? I mean, who are the most important New England Patriots on Sunday night? James White, Julian Edelman, any of the receivers at that point end up third, fourth, fifth, whatever. He handled every single one of those guys. His interception came against N'Keal Harry. He was covering James White out of the backfield. The one that got negated was he was covering Philip Dorsett, the fastest wide receiver the Patriots have. So you now have a guy with Bradley Roby, and I think we knew that. But then he got hurt against Kansas City, so we weren't able to see it for the next few games. And I don't want to say we forgot about it, but we just didn't have that opportunity to see him do that against other teams. The versatility, like, okay, in this game, you're going to cover the running back. You're going to cover the slot receiver. You're going to cover the outside wide receiver. I love the fact that you have versatility in your coverage now, that you could say, okay, who's your top receiver? Well, sometimes Roby will be on him. Sometimes we'll double that guy. So now you can truly spin the dial with your coverage as it pertains to the receivers you're going to face.
Guys, the trickle-down effect is what's impressive and important, right? You sign Laramie Tunsil. Now you can do different things with Titus Howard and Max Sharping. So the whole offensive line gets better. When Bradley Roby comes back, the trickle-down effect of being able to throw Lonnie Johnson, Jonathan Joseph, Vernon Hargraves, and Bradley Roby as your four cover guys. Yeah. And oh, by the way, the two guys on the roof, Justin Reed and Tayshaun Gibson, they're pretty special players too. Yeah. Top to bottom, 1 to 6, that's as good as anybody in the league. And it all starts with the fact that Bradley Roby's plugged back in, that can travel, he can be versatile, he can take a number 1 receiver out of the way, he can blitz and get the quarterback. That's where it starts, but the trickle-down effect is really powerful. And you didn't even throw in Garyon Conley, who's probably going to be back pretty soon. I mean, you've just raised the talent level like you're talking about. It's a beautiful thing, because what doomed this defense back in Indianapolis? You had guys like Xavier Crawford, Keon Crossan, Phillip Gaines, Lonnie Johnson, who was a rookie and about 5 games ago, a lot earlier. I mean, that's a big talent difference out on the field in the secondary.
Well, you bring in Garyon Conley, too. The one thing about facing wide receivers in this league, and it really is going to come to the forefront against the Denver Broncos, you're going to find big, physical, 6'3", 215-pound wide receivers. Well, who do you match up with that guy? Maybe Bradley's not the right matchup for that guy. Yeah, you can run with him, but maybe physically he's not the right matchup. Well, you've got a longer, bigger corner in Garyon Conley.
It's a nice menu for
Absolutely.
Romeo
so
Crennel.
You've got a nice buffet in front of you to say, okay, here's how we're going to attack this group of wide receivers. And the next week, it might be totally different, which makes game planning for the Texans very difficult.
We got to get into the matchup after the break, but first, we got to leave you with a little bit of Texans trivia. Who has the most interceptions in team history? Texans team history. Think about that, and we'll have the answer a little bit later.
It's a 51-yard kick from the right hash mark for the win for McManus. 3 seconds to go in the game. McManus sets up from near the right hash mark. 51-yard attempt for the win. The snap is down. The kick is
wide right.
It's no good. It's wide right. The Texans win it. 19-17. Houston prevails. The Texans have won their 6th straight game.
Ah, yes, that was a fun one. The Texans beat the Broncos last year. It was right before the bye, and it came down to that missed field goal, and you were just going bananas on that call. That was pretty fun.
My mic was left open.
That's all right.
My mic was left open, so you get an inside view of what it sounds like when
it added color to it. I liked it. It's all good. John Harris, Clint Sterner, guys. Drew Lock is a rookie. This is start number 2 for him in the NFL. He's going to be under center here at NRG Stadium for the Broncos. Rookie quarterbacks, pluses, minuses, all around. What do you see from Drew Lock the Texans need to worry about, the Texans might be able to feast on?
Well, I think the worry is that this guy, since his high school days, he's one of those generational quarterbacks that had caught that came up. They were playing 7-on-7 since they were 12 years old. This kid's caught a lot of snaps and made a lot of decisions over and over again. You know, his career at Missouri was record-setting. This guy's capable of putting together a big game that consists of a lot of yards and a lot of touchdowns. He can spin the rock all over the park. There's no doubt about it. Now, the flip side of that is he's a rookie. I would expect Romeo Crennel to throw a lot at the young fella, and secondaries in particular, disguising and throwing different looks at you. It makes it hard on a young quarterback, and so I would expect some cheap turnovers, some bad decisions from the young fella.
And John, on the flip side, the defense of Denver's, they're no joke. I know they don't have Bradley Chubb. I know they don't have Derek Wolfe, but these guys can still get after. He's still got a Hall of Famer that he's probably suiting up.
Yeah, there's no question. Von Miller being on the field creates issues for you no matter what, and he'll loop inside. He does a few more things in Vic Fangio's defense than he did the last couple of years when Vance Joseph was out there with that defense that they ran. So you'll see him come inside and do some different things. Justin Simmons in the secondary is a guy to keep an eye on, number 31, the safety. He's a ball hawk in the middle. He's a lot like Kevin Byard. The Texans will see from the Tennessee Titans. So they'll do some different things back there. They'll try and confuse Deshaun Watson the same way Romeo will try and confuse Drew Lock. Said Deshaun Watson's had a few more starts.
I like that. Start number 35 for Deshaun. Okay, time for our Gatorade players to watch. Clint, who are you going to keep an eye on tomorrow?
Tayshaun Gibson. There's no doubt about it for me. He played an outstanding game last week at a critical moment, but this week he's going to have to come up and support in the run, and playing that tight end on the flip side of Cortland Sutton is going to be key.
It's a good one. Gibson's been money all year long. Who's your guy?
Mine's Jake Martin, and it's funny because we've been talking about him since he got here. We've seen the twitch, we've seen the speed, and now you're facing a couple of tackles. Juwan James probably going to play. He's coming off an injury. You got Garrett Bowles, who I think leads the league in holding penalties. He's going to be facing one of those 2 tackles all day. He gave Marcus Cannon all Cannon could handle. And the one thing about Drew Lock is, no pun intended, he'll get locked in on one side, which young quarterbacks do. They get locked in on one side, and they hold it and wait. That's going to give a guy with some twitch and some speed opportunity to get to the quarterback.
It's also going to give a guy like Bradley Roby, my player to watch, an opportunity to maybe get another pick. And you got to always keep your eyes on a guy who's playing against his former team. I know a lot of the faces have changed coaching-wise, teammate-wise, but still, he's playing the Broncos. That's going to be a fun one to watch, and this is going to be an awesome game to watch. All right, stick with us. We'll be right back with keys to the game. Don't go anywhere.
Texans Extra Points is sponsored by BHP and by Reliant, the official energy provider of the Houston Texans, and by your local Ford dealers. Ford is the best in Texas.
The answer to that Texans trivia question from earlier, well, it's not just one guy, it's two. Jonathan Joseph and someone you'll see tomorrow, Kareem Jackson. They own the all-time interceptions lead with 16 apiece. All right, one last segment. John Harris, Clint Sterner, let's get your FCCU keys to the game. And I'm going to start with you this time. What are two keys for the Texans to pull out a victory? Yeah.
You changed it up on me.
I do. I got to.
I think the Texans have got to be able to run against different fronts.
Okay.
Whatever the Broncos throw at them up front, there's no Derek Wolfe, there's no Bradley Chubb. They've got to be able to power the rock. The other thing I'd like to see them do is go up tempo a little bit more.
Okay.
And I know that's situation dictated by what they're going to see from the Broncos, what they're able to do on first and second down, how many first downs they're able to pick up. But I think if they get the run game going, combined with some up-tempo in their offensive scheme, I think a good opportunity to move the football offensively.
All right, how about you?
I'll go first drive on offense. This team has been as bad as any team in the league on the first drive. 3 points, 3 turnovers, 160 some odd yards in 12 drives. There have been penalty-riddled drives as well. So that first drive, at some point this team has to turn the corner and get better coming out of the locker room to start a football game. And then secondly, I'll go with how they handle Courtland Sutton. They had a great plan against Edelman, obviously.
Yeah.
It's similar this week to where they've got to take Courtland Sutton out of this football game, whether that's Bradley Roby between the 20s and Lonnie Johnson or Garyon Conley in the red zone. I believe Iraq will have a plan, but that's key. How do you slow down Courtland Sutton?
They call him Baby Megatron, like Calvin Johnson. I mean, he is really, really good. Mine is kind of an offshoot of your first one. Just get on these guys early. If they don't score in that first drive, I'd like them to, but just make sure you build a lead early and take those deep shots. Get after them like you did last week. We saw the Texans get 2 nice deep shots. Guys, this was awesome. I love having you on. Clint Sterner, John Harris, let's do this again. How about in January? You cool with that before a big-time game then? All right. And you come back again next week. This has been Texans Extra Points. So long.
Thanks for watching Texans Extra Points. Now, leave your keys to the game in the comments below.